All right, you guys, welcome to our Body Electric weekly webinar. We are monthing out. We are rounding out the month of April already. Seems crazy. Feels like Summit will be here before we know it. Tonight we are finishing a three-part series, two-part series having to do with goals. There are a lot of coaches on our team right now who are shooting for goals for Summit recognition, and the goal deadline for that is early in May. So for the last 3 weeks, we've been focused on that, right? Like 3 weeks ago, we talked about just our first step in this process was talking about priority management, how to manage your priorities, because time management is sort of a farce. And then last week, we did some individual one-on-one coaching sessions. And then this week, we're finishing it out. So for a lot of us, this is sort of crunch time if we're shooting for goals for Summit. So I thought it might be worthwhile to talk about some productivity hacks and some ways that I really make sure that my business stays a priority in my life. So what I thought we would do is just sort of go through some of my tips and tricks and everything tonight. I've had the advantage of listening to a couple of recent personal development books that are also on this topic. So I feel like it's like fresh in my mind, and it feels like it's ringing true for me and really helping me as well. So I thought I might as well share it. So I'm going to share my screen here because you guys know I like to keep on track. So here we go. So what I thought we would talk about tonight is how you can work smarter in your business and not necessarily harder. Because the number one thing that I hear from a lot of coaches is, I know I just need to work harder, right? Or if they're coming up short on their goals, or they're really not making enough time for their business or making their business a priority, typically their first reaction is that they're not working hard enough. And I'm always really quick to correct people, because a lot of times it's not about how hard you're working, but how smart you're working. A lot of us are moms, dads, wives, husbands. We have full-time jobs or part-time jobs. We have other responsibilities outside of this business. And just like Josh Coates says, right? Like, you can start your business as a Beachbody coach for under $200. It's not like you guys are cutting a check for 10 grand to open a Chick-fil-A, right? So there's minimal investment on your part coming in. And therefore, as a result, we typically see the business just not become a priority in your life to make something happen with it. So it's really all about working smarter and not harder. We talked about priority management. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit more about just the essence of productivity and how you can become more productive in your business. So first of all, just a couple quick announcements. The next Ultimate Portion Fix group is set to launch on May 6th. That's going to come up here before you know it. So if you have challengers who've ordered since our last round started, they can hop into that May 6th group. That group will be created before I leave for vacation. So that group will be created next week at the very latest, early next week. We have our next Finding Fulfillment event next Tuesday night. That will be very similar to months past. We'll be doing a live stream into that particular group page on that evening. Coach Summit tickets. We have lots of new coaches on this team, right? Last night we had a great call with a lot of our new to the business coaches about how they can achieve that first milestone in their business. Coach Summit is something that I wanted to start talking about now, and I'm going to talk about it every week until July because it is that important. Coach Summit this year is in Indy. A lot of us are local to the Midwest, or we have family in the Midwest, and I would really, 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 if I could tell you nothing else, it would be make it a non-negotiable to be at Summit. Whether you're not really sure what you want to make of this business, if anything, maybe it's just a hobby for you, all the way to the person who's all in, Coach Summit is an amazing, amazing experience. There's really nothing like it. There's personal development. Rachel Hollis will be there speaking. She's the author of Girl Wash Your Face and Girl Stop Apologizing. They just announced that James Clear, who I'm actually going to be referring to tonight in our presentation, he's the author of Atomic Habits. He's going to be another keynote speaker as well. So in addition to coach trainings and workouts with the trainers and all that kind of stuff, we have some pretty amazing keynote speakers as well. So the under $200 ticket for Coach Summit is well worth the cost. So make sure you are grabbing that ticket before ticket sales end, because I think there's only like 4 or 5 more weeks that tickets are even available. And in the past, they actually have sold out before. So make sure you get yours before it does that. So, and then finally, just scheduled in the last week or so a sort of team gathering that will be at my house. This is not my lake in the picture, but I do live on a lake and have access to the lake for some stand-up paddleboard yoga. And this event will be open to anyone who is in our rank attack group. So what that means is you have to be halfway to diamond to be eligible for this particular event. So halfway to diamond means that you have at least 4 personally sponsored coaches and an emerald coach. At that point, you will be invited to this event. So we're going to start doing a lot of really cool events like this, really just for that sense of tribe and community. And I'm looking to have maybe even a cool guest speaker do some stuff with us this particular day, super casual. We're also going to be doing some cool stuff in the fall. We've got like a self-defense class set up. We've got a little private boutique shopping experience set up. So we've got some cool things planned for our team on the fun side for the rest of this year. This will be the next one. So just wanted to get the word out about that. Okay, so let's dive into talking about productivity. Okay, and so if anybody does have any questions as I'm going, feel free to unmute yourself and ask verbally. Otherwise, you can put any questions that you might have in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them later. But for tonight, what I really want you to come away with is, ultimately, if we're talking about productivity and we're talking about how we can, make more of our time spent on the business, whether that's financially or whatever, it all comes down to our habits, right? You guys have heard, you've heard the quotes about like what we repeatedly do is all about our habits, right? Like what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So what I'm hoping that you come away from this with is not just some tips on how to manage your time better in the business, but also maybe even some small ways that you can set up some changes based on triggers. So we'll talk about triggers here in a little while. I'll even share with you some of my triggers in my personal life. But that's one of the takeaways that I want you to come away with tonight. Also, we're going to talk about how being overwhelmed is a feeling and feelings are a choice. I just heard this on a call with Kim Fitzpatrick. She's the #1 coach in Canada right now. And that's her quote. And I was like, that is amazing because it's 100% true. Anytime a coach says, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, it takes everything I have not to say, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way, right? Because it's a feeling and you can change that feeling. So I'm hoping that when you leave this webinar tonight, you have some methods and ways and new triggers that can really help you not feel overwhelmed. And then of course, how to work smarter, not harder. So this is sort of the basis of why I chose this topic tonight. I just finished reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a fantastic book. I listened to it on Audible. He's really great to listen to as well. He says, we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. So I'm going to say that one more time. We do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. In other words, if we don't have any systems in place and any routines in place, and this goes for our business and our personal life, that's our default, right? So you're not naturally going to rise to your goals, right? You're going to default to the systems, whether you have them in place or not. So that's what I'm hoping we can focus on tonight. So beyond, wait, hang on, I think this is in the wrong order. So the first tip that I have for you tonight is to create smaller to-do lists. Now, here's what I mean by this. A lot of times we create these big master to-do lists, right? Or we have these big, what I like to call frogs. Brian Tracy calls it eat that frog, right? We have these big tasks or action items that need to be accomplished in our business. And so we just have this master to-do list that's sitting on our desk or wherever. And how often do we actually tackle that to-do list, right? Like even if you allocate an hour to your business, are you tackling that to-do list? Probably not. So one thing that I do is I make it smaller. I break it down so that it's individual steps and not just one primary goal. So let me give you an example. So if I have, let's say that one of the main things that I want to get done this week is I want to send an email blast, an email newsletter, okay? And if I were to just put this, I used to do this, by the way. If I was to just put in my planner to send my email newsletter, then I probably would just move it to the next day every day. So Monday it would say email newsletter, and then by the time I got to like 8 o'clock at night, I would be like, oh, I don't want to do that. And then I'd just push it till Tuesday. And that was my life for a really long time until I learned this tip, right? So what I started to do was I started to say, what are the steps involved in doing my email newsletter? Okay, so step number one, I have to find the recipe that I want to use for my newsletter. I have to find the Shakeology recipe that I want to use and the food recipe that I want to use. I have to find a graphic or an image that I'm going to use to promote my challenge group, right? And I have to write the motivational message that makes up the body of my email blast. So what I started to do was those 4-ish steps that make up my end goal, which is to send my email blast, those little steps get plugged into my daily agenda. So on Monday, instead of saying, I'm going to do my email newsletter, I say, on Monday, I'm going to create my graphic for my email newsletter, and I'm going to find my recipes. Does that make sense? And then on Tuesday, I say, I'm going to write my motivational message for my newsletter. And by that point, the newsletter's done. So I'm breaking down my goal into smaller action steps or a smaller to-do list, and then I'm plugging that into my planner. So whatever your ultimate goal is for the week, whatever those frogs are for your week, I want you to reverse engineer them. I want you to ask yourself, what action steps are needed for me to accomplish that goal? And then those actions are what gets plugged into your planner. Productivity hack number 2, right? Follow the 80-20 rule. What are the 20% of your activities that are going to produce 80% of your results in the business? I can almost answer this for you, having been doing this business for as long as I have, right? Inviting, connecting with people, and following up are your primary business activities in this business. So if you're just posting on your social media, you've got really pretty stories, you've even done a fancy poll. By the way, I just figured out how to do a poll on my stories like 2 weeks ago. And I've still been successful in this business, not knowing how to do a poll. So inviting, connecting, and following up are your primary breadwinning activities for this business, because that's going to produce most of your results, right? Like, so for example, for me, as the month goes on, if I haven't hit my 3 Lives Club or 5 Lives Club goal for the month, inviting, connecting, and following up makes up my priorities each day, because I know that effort is going to bring 80% of my results in the business. Everything else can kind of go to the side. So what I typically find is that coaches will say, well, I really want to get caught up on my personal development reading today, or I really want to tune into that call that I missed last week, right? And so they spend the 45 minutes or an hour that they have to work their business doing those things. And those are valuable things, but they're not actually going to produce results. So your daily agenda should include what's going to give you the best results, which means every day we should be inviting, connecting, and following up. So number 3, eat that frog early each day. So if we know that connecting, inviting, and following up is the number 1 activity to bring results in our business, what's the first thing we should do every day, right? So for me, this is the very first thing that I do in my power hour. Now, my power hour every day does not start until the evening. That's just by choice. I'm more creative after 4 o'clock. I'm like a night owl. So if I were to try to make myself do like 5 a.m. invites, I would just be like, I would hate it. So I'm an evening person. But regardless, when I sit down to work my business, the first thing that I do is I send those invites, follow-ups, and connections right off the bat, usually right after I listen to something inspirational. And that way I know that I'm moving my business forward. So if nothing else happens for the day, right, I know that I'm still doing the one thing that's going to give me those results. So I recommend doing the same. Knock it out early. Carl actually refers to this. For those of you guys who are at Super Saturday, you heard this live. A couple years ago, he ran a cool group where he literally facilitated the actions of a lot of coaches in the business. Like, he was telling us what to do each day. And the one thing that he came up with were what he called these donuts. Yes, donuts. So he talked about how, like, baseball players, when they're getting ready to go up to bat, they put a donut on their baseball bat, which is like a weight, right? And they swing the bat, and they swing the bat, and they swing the bat, and they're practicing before they go up to the plate to hit the ball. And those weights are called donuts, right? And so he would invite us every day during that group to get out our 5 donuts or our 10 donuts every morning first thing. Like, When you sit down to work your business, that's the first thing you're going to be doing, right? And I have never seen my business move forward quicker than when I took that advice. So there's something to eating that frog, as Brian Tracy says, first thing every day. Number 4, automate everything that you can in this business. Now, I could do a total separate call on how to automate and systematize your business. Like that could be like a totally other topic. I personally feel like our Body Electric team does a fantastic job of having systems in place. I think we even have a recording on that somewhere on our team website as well. But first of all, automating the things that you can automate makes it a lot more simple for you. So for me personally, one of the things that I have that saves me time is I usually send potential challengers when I'm having conversations with them. I usually send the same language. So like for Ultimate Portion Fix, once I know what a person's goal is, and once I know that they're ready to hear the information about Ultimate Fix, I have like a little paragraph of what I send them. I finally picked up on this when 80 Day Obsession released, that if I just save that paragraph or two in my phone, I don't have to write it out to every single person that I'm talking to. I can just copy and paste it, right? That's a way of just automating something small that saves you a lot of time. And that's the essence of productivity. So automating things saves you time. And most importantly, because we are network marketers, it duplicates. So then when you say, here's the paragraph that I'm sending to all of my Ultimate Fix people, you can be like, hey, coaches, to your coaches, here's the blurb I'm sending to people about Ultimate Portion Fix, right? So it's an easy way to duplicate too. It's saving you time and you're able to share it with your coaches. Bob Heilig, I don't know which podcast it was. It's one of the most recent ones in the queue. But last week I was listening to his podcast and he said, in this business, you're either people dependent or systems dependent. If you're people dependent, it's going to leave you in despair. If you're systems dependent, it's going to build you an empire. So building systems and automating processes and automating things for yourself is going to help you save time. So let's talk about systems just a little bit more. Like I said, I could talk about this for days, but I'm going to give you the highlights. So here's a few systems that you should be utilizing and plugging into every single day. So when you bring on a new customer, you should be using our new customer or new member of our virtual gym checklist. So if you want to change the heading so that it says your challenge group, checklist, whatever, that's fine. If you don't want it to say virtual gym, new member checklist. But this checklist, I actually give it to my customers because I'm letting them know, right? Like these are your steps to getting started in the virtual gym or getting started in the challenge group. So this is an automatic process for me. As soon as a person generates their order for a challenge pack and I add them to the virtual gym or I add them to the Ultimate Fix group or whatever they're doing, then the very next step is to say, okay, I need you to let me know when you get your products in the mail. Here is my new member checklist that I'd like for you to go over. This is the very first thing that I want you to go over. This is the order of how we will get you started. Okay, so then what is it doing for me? It's doing the talking for me. I don't have to go through these steps with them necessarily individually. They're going to let me know when their product comes. I've told them what to do. They're going to have already navigated Beachbody On Demand. They're going to already have navigated the virtual gym group. So what happens if I don't do this? Right? That's the better question. If I don't do this, if I don't have something automated and I don't have a system, what happens? Typically the person orders, I congratulate them on the order, I add them to the group, nothing happens. Their Shakeology comes in the mail a week later, they're maybe like 80% as excited as they were when they first signed up. Now they're busy, they don't know when they're gonna start, right? So capitalizing on their energy, capitalizing on their commitment, keeping that in just a system makes things a lot easier. So we have the exact same thing for new coaches. So I didn't have the room on this slide to show it to you, but we have two different checklists. One is for new customers, new members of our virtual gym. The other is a new coach checklist. It looks the exact same. So those are in our team page. This particular one is also in the virtual gym in the files section as well. So start using those. You can also create things like this on your own if you don't want to use ours. So also, right, setting boundaries and setting business hours for yourself. How many of us have had our spouse or somebody say, you're on your phone all the time, right? This has been huge for me. Again, 9 years into this business, it took me a solid 5 or 6 years to figure out how to set business hours, when to check my phone, how to set boundaries, how to loop my family into my goals, right? How to go through those seasons of my business where I'm pushing really hard for a goal and my business takes priority, but then how to also do the opposite, right? Like how to go on vacation to Disney World next week and not constantly be checking my phone and working my business. So there's like fine balance, and you'll find that as you go, but it has to be a priority for you. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about setting boundaries. So again, overwhelmed is a feeling. I find that people who are overwhelmed typically don't have systems in place. So they're repeating, they're reinventing the wheel. They feel like they're just always on call. They're checking their phone all the time. Isn't it funny, right? Here's a total call out, you guys. Isn't it funny that most of the time when coaches tell me they're feeling overwhelmed, they're one of the first coaches who are seeing my stories, or they're one of the first coaches who are commenting on my post or my picture of Ellery or whatever, you know? So I know they're on their social media. I know they're like obsessing over that. They're getting that serotonin rush by being on their Facebook or their Instagram. And then they're telling me they're too overwhelmed in the business. And I'm like, well, you're kind of on your phone all the time. Like, and I can tell that, and I'm not even living with you. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you have got to put these boundaries into place. You've got to set business hours for yourself, and you've got to be focused. This is something that I have been working on as well. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to dive into what I do here shortly. So set business hours, right? Some of you guys who are working full time, you're like, I have to work my business in pockets of time. I understand that, but make it very clear cut. So I know some of you, right? Like you go on your 30-minute or 60-minute lunch break and you sit down, and that's when you check in with your challenge groups. Perfect. Some of you get up early before the kids get up, you do your workout, whatever, perfect, right? I totally understand that. But making sure that you stay committed to business hours is a totally separate thing. So maybe it's a conversation for you. If you're somebody who's pressing play on your workout at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so that you don't have to interrupt your kids' routine in the morning and you're getting it done before everybody else, but then all of a sudden it's 9 o'clock at night and you've not worked your business at all, then maybe you could set 10 minutes earlier. Your alarm could be 10 minutes earlier to send those 5 donuts before you press play, or immediately after you press play, right? Or maybe you have an alarm go off on your phone and you tell your spouse in advance, every night at 8:30, my phone's gonna go off. And I need to go step into my office or whatever for 20 minutes and send some invitations and connections for my business. Is that okay? Right? So setting boundaries, having set times, communicating that with your spouse, communication is key, will keep you from feeling overwhelmed in addition to automating things. Okay. You must be connecting with people, looping your family into the goals, and then create rewards for yourself, right? Like I saw this posted somewhere today and I don't know where it was, but if you're someone who's shooting for 3 Lives Club, it is the number 1 business goal, right? Like if you're working this business, 3 Lives Club should be your goal each and every month, but give yourself a reward, right? Like, you know that if you hit 3 Lives Club, you're paying for your own product, your own Shakeology. So maybe that means when you hit 3 Lives Club, you're going to buy yourself a new personal development book, or you're going to go get a manicure pedicure on you, right? Like your business is going to pay for that manicure pedicure. And then loop your family into goals as well. So like mommy's going to work every night from 8:30 to 9:30 or whatever time you choose, or every morning, because if I make this goal happen, we're going to go to Disney, or we're going to go to Nashville, Tennessee, or wherever, right? Like looping your family into those goals really does create buy-in from your family. And it's also setting those boundaries for you. So it's showing your family, look, I'm going to do my best to be off my phone every other time, but I need this hour every evening to work my business. So let's talk some habits. If you guys haven't heard the phrase triggers before, this is a phrase that I think Charles Duhigg came up with. He's the author of the book called The Power of Habit. I only read half of that book, you guys. It's a great book, but it was super redundant, and I got the point by the halfway through. So regardless, he talks about triggers. So let me talk about some of the triggers that I have in my life and also some triggers that I've seen successful network marketers do. So the first one is a miracle morning. Okay. I think a year or two ago, Katie Kelly did a call for our team on how she utilizes the miracle morning. That is in our recorded calls on our team website. So if you're an early bird, or if you're interested in working your business early in the morning, or regardless, just in the morning in general, following the miracle morning is a great thing. If you haven't read that book, that's fantastic. It's a fantastic book. They actually have one called Miracle Morning for Network Marketers that I recommend. So he talks about what he calls the SAVERS method, which is silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. For those of you who, like for me, I was like, what is scribing? Scribing is journaling. So this is just a format. The SAVERS method is a format that you could follow every single morning. He recommends that you set your alarm starting out just a few minutes early. Maybe it's 30 minutes earlier than you would normally set it. And you start your day with these 6 things, right? You have a moment of silence, like a minute or 5 minutes, however long you need. Then you go into affirmations, right? Setting your mindset right. Visualization, visualizing your goals. Maybe you do your workout, or maybe a lot of people will save their workout and do their workout right after. Read a little bit of personal development and then journal. But what it does is it's getting your mind right for the day every single morning, right? And that is a trigger. Your alarm goes off. It goes off 30 minutes early. You're doing your miracle morning. Then you go about your day, right? That's setting a trigger for yourself. Nighttime routine could be the same thing, right? For me, I'm not a morning person. So I do a lot of my, I guess you could say, savers type things in the evening. I do gratitude journaling. I usually read my personal development book, a few minutes worth of my personal development book in the evening. I create my to-do list for the next day. And then I even try to choose whatever my personal development is going to be the next day in advance. So I'll go through my phone, I'll go through, podcasts or whatever, trying to find what I want to listen to the next day, so that when I wake up the next morning, all of that's already planned for me. I know what my most important things are. I know what personal development I'm going to hit play on. So let's talk about that, because I know that this is a question that I've been asked a lot lately, especially when I've talked to some new coaches. But let me talk a little bit about kind of what my day looks like on a daily basis. So like I said before, I'm not a morning person at all whatsoever. I really don't wake up until like almost lunchtime, to be completely honest with you. And my daughter is unfortunately an early bird. So she's up every morning at 6. That means if I was going to get up and work my business, it'd have to be before that. And that's just not happening if you know me. So I work my business a lot in the evening and in pockets of time and during her nap time. So I kind of consider my day really kind of starts the night before, because I put a lot of effort into setting my next day up for success. It's kind of like the concept of packing your lunch the night before, laying your clothes out the night before. That way, when you wake up in the morning, everything just flows a lot more easily. That's the same concept here with my business. So every night before bed, I will actually pull up YouTube on my phone, and I will find usually I like to find like an Eric Thomas motivational video. He just, for some reason, he pumps me up. So I do that because, let me tell you, I have a trigger set. So when my alarm goes off, I have a choice, I guess, technically. I can either turn off my alarm or hit snooze a million times. Or for me, what I've discovered is if I make it a rule in my head that my alarm goes off and then I press play on that video that I queued up the night before on my phone, all of a sudden Eric Thomas is like preaching at me about goals and success and motivation and da-da-da. And I'm out of bed, right? So I start my day usually in bed with the very first 5 minutes of my alertness being an Eric Thomas video, like chanting in my ear, right? But I set that up the night before. So before I go to bed at night, it's like a 30-minute process. You can ask my husband. He's like, gosh, it takes you forever to go to bed. I'm like, because I'm setting my next day up for success. So I'm doing these things while I'm taking my supplements, right? Like all these things, brushing my teeth, like these are all things that I do. So I set up my YouTube motivation video for the next morning. I do a little bit of gratitude journaling. So I sit there in bed. I have a gratitude journal right by my bedside. For me, it's just sort of like a recap of my day, all the different things that I feel grateful for that I experienced during the day. Then I pick up that PD book. Right now it is Girl Stop Apologizing for our mastermind. I commit to just 10 pages or 10 minutes of this book every single night. And then I create my to-do list for the next day. So I kind of know what my agenda is going to look like for the next day because I plan that a week in advance. But the night before, I'm telling myself, okay, tomorrow, what do I have? Ellery's got a doctor's appointment. I've got a haircut. Okay, I'll have Ellery's nap time to work. Okay, what are the most important things that I need to get done during that time? And I'll create just a short list, right, of here's the people that I'm going to connect with and invite and follow up with, because that's most important. And then I'd also really like to get my graphic created for my newsletter, right, or whatever that is. So I create those little bullet points of what I want to get done the night before. Then the next morning when my alarm goes off, right, listen to that video. My alarm goes off, I press play on the YouTube video. I wake up because I have no choice because Eric Thomas is in my ear. And then while I'm waiting for Ellery to wake up, I go through all of my Facebook groups. So I pull up on my phone, I don't click on my notifications button. I don't go to my personal page. I don't pull up my messenger. I go to the far right. I don't have my phone with me. I go to the far right little button, whatever that is. I click on groups. All of my current groups that are in action are all favorited. So they're all at the very top. And I go through one by one. Body Electric team page, Rank Attack group, Leaders United, Ultimate Fix, Body Electric virtual gym. All the groups that I have going on at one given time, I make sure that either I've added value right off the bat early in the day, or somebody has lead posted. So the people in that group are being taken care of. I make sure that that happens first. Then I get out of bed, I get dressed, I get ready for the day, I go get my daughter. So this is something that I learned from the Brenda Burchard book, High Performance Habits. In my office on my whiteboard, I just wrote it out. It says, who needs me on my A game today? And I decided that that goes for my daughter as well. So I have a Post-it note on the outside of her door frame that says, she needs me on my A game today. So every morning when I walk into her room, I see that note, right? Sets my mind right. I've already listened to Eric Thomas. I'm already in a better mood, right? My day's off on the right foot. And that same Post-it note is actually my trigger when I leave her bedroom. When I leave her bedroom at nap time, after I put her down at 1 o'clock, I see that Post-it note that reminds me, podcast time. So as soon as I close the door to her bedroom, I pull up my phone, I press play on a podcast, and I'm listening to personal development while I clean up toys, do dishes, all that crap that I love to do, right? But I'm listening to something good while I'm doing that. And then as soon as I'm done cleaning up and that podcast is over, I press play on my own workout. This is something that I started doing in the last year. I turn my phone off when I'm working out. So I turn on music, I press play, and I legit do not take pictures of myself, videos of myself. I need that workout time for me, and I don't want to be obsessing about my business and my pictures and my videos and all that. That's personal for me. So I turn my phone off. Now, every once in a while, I will take a sweaty selfie, or I'll take a picture after the workout is over. I'll do a move from the workout and take a picture just for my social, but my phone is not on, and I'm not constantly going to it while I'm working out. I'm making the most of my time and focusing on my workout. Okay, so when my workout's over, I've been doing my workouts on my laptop because that's where Ultimate Fix is. I take my laptop upstairs, make my recover, sit my laptop on the island. That's gonna be important later because I'm setting the trigger for myself for later. So laptop goes on the island. I go take my shower. If I have any pre-scheduled calls with my success partner or with any coaches, I usually schedule those for Ellery's nap time. So I take care of those calls during her nap time. And then I re-enter her bedroom again after she wakes up, get her from her nap. She's my focus. My phone doesn't come out. Usually, actually, my phone is being charged or it's not even in the room with me until close to her bedtime. When she goes down for bedtime, I come downstairs, usually say goodnight to her, come down the stairs, and her monitor is also on the island, which is where I left it earlier. I turn on the monitor so I can kind of see when she goes to bed. I can keep an eye on her. We still use the monitor. And right there on my island is my laptop. Before I do anything, dishes, anything else, clean the floors, I leave the house a mess, pick up my laptop, I go to my office and I crush a power hour. I've had to force myself to do that because I used to just make myself busy at home. Like, oh, the dryer's got to be emptied. I got to fold the dryer. I got to do dishes. I got to do whatever. But I found that like after she goes to bed at 7:30, my husband goes to take a shower or he goes to do his workout or whatever. And so it's just like my time. So that's the time that I can go and get things done. 7:30 to 9. Usually I have some sort of call to tune into or lead or something from 9 to 10. And guess what happens from there, right? Sit down, talk to Chris about my day. We have our little moment from 10 to 11 o'clock. I do my bedtime routine to set up my day for the next, set up my day for success the next day. So I would say on average, right, I'm working in small pockets of time with that power hour each day. And I run a very successful personal business. Like my personal business is very successful. I would say most people that have as much success as I do in a world outside of network marketing, as far as financial success, are working 40+ hour work weeks. And I'm not doing that. I'm present for my daughter. I'm present like half the time. My dad stays here for the day, like 2 days a week so that my mom can go out and about. My dad's disabled, so I care for my dad too. I can be 100% present with him, 100% present with my business, 100% present with my daughter, with my spouse, right? Because I have set boundaries. I've set personal business hours for myself, and I follow this routine every single day. Okay. So other things that I wanted to just throw into the mix. Okay. So these are just like last second thoughts that I had. I listen to my upline team calls, the Sparta Nation team calls. I've never missed a call. Been a coach for 9 years. I listen to every single call that my upline hosts. But I don't always listen to it live just because it's Sunday evenings. And that's a really hard time for me. So it's like right at Ellery's bedtime. So instead, I usually listen to them recorded. I listen to the National Wake Up Call. I listen to as many corporate trainings as I can, but I listen to them when I'm in the shower or when I'm driving. So they don't take up my power hour. I don't listen to them when Ellery and I are playing, right? So they're just during my personal time or my drive time or when I'm in the shower. There is a really cool thing you can get from Amazon called a sound bot. It is a waterproof speaker for your shower. It's a Bluetooth speaker, sticks on the wall, pretty inexpensive. I use that puppy every day. I'm pretty sure the people who visit my house are like, I have a whiteboard in my shower and I have a sound bot. So I think they think I'm really, really, really weird. But it's my way of being as productive as I can be. If I can feed my mind while I'm taking a shower, actually think best in the shower, then that's a win. So I recommend that for anybody who's really short on time, even especially with personal development. I plan my week ahead on Friday evenings. So when it comes to my like family activities, appointments, anything we're doing as a team, all those sort of big activities go into my weekly planner, but I do those on Friday night. Friday tends to be the day that I don't plan a lot of stuff for myself. It's kind of like my day off, really. And so that's a great day for me to sit down with my planner and say, okay, what do we have happening next week? Like what days are going to be crazy busy? What days are going to be more relaxed? And I kind of make a basic framework for my week the Friday night before. Okay. One thing that I wanted to mention, and I meant to take a picture of it and I didn't get to it in time, but one thing that I have done before that I have started doing again is I have been tracking my new coaches on what I call a coach timeline. And this might not make sense unless I showed you a picture of it. But imagine a timeline, like high school history class timeline, right? Like a line with dots on it of like big historical moments. I keep a timeline like that, one timeline, one black line, right? And it has different benchmarks, like 3 Lives Club, Success Starter, Emerald, Diamond, like where I'm tracking, like that's what the black line has on it. And then each of my new coaches has a different color marker. So I have like orange for somebody, pink for somebody. And so what I do is I keep track of my new coaches and where they are on a progressive status on that timeline on a whiteboard. So that's just a small tip for those of you who are looking for ways to kind of track your coaches. When you start recruiting like 3, 4, 5, 6 coaches a month or more into the business, making sure that you're getting them started and keeping them going is important. So yes, the first 24 hours is important and the first 30 days is important, but knowing where they're at and how you can serve them, for me, it's easiest to kind of keep track of them on like a good old fashioned timeline. I can share a picture of that sometime if you'd like to see it. I do all of my bigger tasks like email newsletters, writing a blog post, all that kind of stuff. That typically doesn't go into my daily agenda because it sucks my time away from that inviting, connecting, and following up, which is where my results come from. So that happens every day. The following up, the inviting, and the connecting. The bigger tasks like the email blasts, the blog, all that stuff is stuff that I save for free time on the weekends or scheduled business time on the weekends. So if Chris is sitting around grading papers, I'll work on my email newsletter, right? Or if I'm able to tell him in advance and say like, I really need to work this weekend. I'm feeling really behind. Can you watch Ellery? Can you keep Ellery, Saturday morning so that I can work for 2 hours, right? So I do those bigger tasks on the weekend. And then I allocate really simple tasks to my assistant. When I went full-time in coaching in 2012, I was like, one of my first goals was, okay, like I've gone full-time. This is now my full-time income. I've been able to afford someone to clean my house every so often. So my next goal is to be able to afford an assistant. And I remember Chalene Johnson talking about this really early on in my business about how it was one of the most effective things she can recommend doing is to have somebody, whether it's an assistant or a virtual assistant in another country, right? You can use things like elance.com and different websites that are super affordable. And she was like, because here's why. I used to spend so much time like pulling reports, like pulling a 3 Lives Club report for our team and then creating the graphic for that, right? Creating something pretty or creating graphics for my new coach welcomes or Emerald advancements or whatever. Like pretty much anything involving a graphic is fun to do, but it would suck my time because I would sit on an app on my phone or on PicMonkey for like 30 minutes designing something with the right font and the right colors. And I was like, this is a waste of my time. This isn't making me any money, right? This isn't the end goal. Same thing goes for my newsletter. I realized that every single month I put a Shakeology recipe in there, a family recipe in there, and I create a graphic promoting my next challenge group. So I decided, why not have an assistant who can do those sort of administrative tasks, and then I can focus on my motivational message, right? And I can focus on those activities like putting together this presentation for you guys today, right? I was able to do that during my little nap time, break, power hour, whatever you want to call it, because it's an effective use of my time. I'm teaching a dozen coaches on our team right now how to do this. There's going to be more people tuning in to the recording. To me, that's an effective use of my time, right? In business terms, it's affecting my bottom dollar, right? Whereas creating a pretty graphic is not. So I realized that hiring an assistant sounds crazy up front, especially if you're new to the business, but I'm telling you that as you go on, it's one of the best early investments that you can make because you'll start to understand that your time is super valuable and what you can earn in an hour is a lot more than what you would pay an assistant to do for those administrative tasks. So for me, that has been a huge help to my productivity as well. So this question came to me from one of our diamond coaches last week asking about, hey, how much time should I be focusing in my business on my personal business, my personal recruiting, my personal success club versus helping my coaches and helping my team? And Doug Moss is somebody that I highly respect. He works for Beachbody Corporate. And he actually, this is from his desk. Like this is literally a picture that a drawing or whatever that he wrote. So he says, right, that if you are a diamond coach in this business, that you should be spending 90% of your time on your personal business, recruiting new coaches, and 10% with your team, working with your team, mentoring your coaches. If you're a 2-star, it's 80-20. If you're a 5-star, it's 70-30, 10-star, 60-40, and 15-star, 50-50. So what does this tell you, right? Like there's probably a lot of you right now who are thinking, wow, I spend way too much mentoring my 1 working coach or my 5 working coaches. Like I'm spending too much time with my personal business doing that. So I think it's valuable, because if you would have looked at the way I managed my time and my productivity years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was spending way too much mentoring coaches, way too much time mentoring coaches, and not enough on my personal business, right? So I speak about this from experience. So if you're someone building your business, like, unless you are a 5 to 10 star diamond coach at this point, 80 to 90% of your time should be focused on your own personal power hour, hitting Success Club, bringing in new coaches, etc. Okay, I just got asked that last week and I thought it kind of fit in here. So to wrap it up, you'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. So I did want to put together some little suggested personal development books if this is an area of struggle for you, if you feel like you need to become more productive. If you're saying to yourself, I need to just work harder, this is my cue to you that no, in fact, you do not need to work harder. You need to work smarter. And productivity needs to be an area of focus for you with your personal development. So #1 book by far, Atomic Habits by James Clear. He's speaking at Summit. Actually, he's been interviewed on a ton of podcasts. The one that I listened to today, he was interviewed on the Smart Passive Income podcast with Pat Flynn. That one was fantastic. You could start there, see if you jive with it. He's got some great tips. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg is really good, but it's a little scientific. Like, it's kind of like teaches you about habits and triggers. I feel like Atomic Habits is more applicable. Like, it teaches you more like life skills and how to make this really apply to you. Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy is a classic. And then there are a couple of podcasts, Beyond the To-Do List and the Life Coach School, which are both really good with helping you kind of zero in on your personal productivity. So does anybody have any, I think that's it. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about any of that, or was it helpful? I only see Lee and Jennifer because everybody else has their camera turned off. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them in the chat or unmute.
Super helpful, because today I got totally out of my routine, actually yesterday too. So I feel like I got way out of whack with my invites and everything. I felt like overwhelmed and kind of freaked out on Clint before bed last night. And then he was like, just go do your workout and get out of my face. Okay.
Yeah. Trust me, I know. I mean, I went through years of like battling with my spouse about how much time I was spending and how much I was on my phone. And it took me forever for the bell to click, or for the, for my mind to click with the fact that like, this was me on me. Like, if I were, if I were 100% present with him and then 100% present with my business, and he knew about my business hours and he knew about my goals and we were communicating, right? It takes all the problems away. So telling you this in advance, like, not saying that there's an issue there, but I'm just saying, like, for the future, like, this works way better to communicate that up front. I will also say that Shalene Johnson just recently was talking about productivity too on her podcast. I should have mentioned that. She's got a lot of good stuff too. So what I will say, because I know there has to be a question, or there has to be something brought up here. What I will say while we're waiting is, I know some of you guys aren't necessarily planner people who keep some sort of a daily agenda, right? It makes sense to me because this business tends to attract people who are in some regards social people, like social animals. And so some of us don't like to be restricted by having that set plan. And so hopefully what I shared with you guys tonight is helpful, because even though I do live by my planner, I am not scheduled to the minute. I just have a routine. So my Monday through Friday is just a routine, right? And I create those little rules and triggers, like picking my video out the night before, setting my laptop on the island so that it's the first thing I grab when I turn on Ellery's monitor. Like, those small things that just trigger that routine. right? And so if you're someone who's like, I've tried to use a planner and I bought 15 kinds and none of them work, like, okay, then give up the planner and just start planning your next day every night, the night before. Like, plan what you're going to do the night before, kind of have a week overview. So whether that's Friday night or Sunday night, like, what am I doing this week? What's my goal? What are my action steps? Right? So it doesn't have to necessarily be by planner, but following those routines and having those triggers set up are huge.
Jenny, I was just gonna say that I agree with that. I have tried a lot of different types of planners, and I tend to get I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but I try to plan too much in my planner, and then I'm like, I feel like I'm too planned, and then if something doesn't go well, I kind of freak out, and it just kind of goes the opposite way. So like you, I try to plan the day before. Like I'll make my list of people I'm going to reach out to. I will set the time that I'm going to work my business based on what my day looks like, my power hour, and what my priorities are for the day, which the high performance planner has helped a lot with setting those priorities. But yeah, that's worked a lot better than scheduling minute by minute for me. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and for me too, like if there are days, because there are always days where like that routine gets kind of busted up, right? Like I have a doctor's appointment this coming Friday. I think it's at 2:00, which is like totally wrecks my plans, right? Because I'm like, well, when am I going to work out? Because usually that's when I work out, and I can't have any coach calls at that time. So now I got to figure out when I'm going to work out, right? And then it changes my whole day. So, but I know about that in advance, and I can kind of usually by the night before, I visualized my next day, right? Like I know what I'm what I'm going to be doing and what's most important for me to get done. So I think that the number one issue that I see with coaches and productivity is they think they have to work harder when really they have to work smarter. I've already said that 100 times. But they also think that they're doing the activities. They're like, I'm doing the activities. Like I press play every day. I'm sharing it on my stories. I'm listening to my PD in the car every day, right? But they're not connecting and inviting and following up with people. And if you're not connecting with people, and I'm talking like private messenger, text, phone, in person, whatever, if you're not touching people in some way, like communicatively, like you're not going to advance your business, period. So that's why that action needs to be the focus every day. That's going to produce 80% of your results. I had someone last week, they were like, well, I really need to get caught up though on my personal development. So I'm going to do that. And I'm like, well, that sounds awesome, but let's make that your reward. Right. And I know Shalene talks about that too. Like we all like to sit and scroll Instagram and Facebook. Like everybody does, right? That's the power of social media. It can be a time suck. So for me, like I make that a reward. So I don't even think I mentioned this. I think it might've been in my slide, but I didn't mention it. So in my day, like I think I told you guys that in the morning I post in my groups and then I get out. So I get in and get out. I get in, click on my groups, check, make sure there's a lead post everywhere, I've added value, and then I get out of my phone. And then this is something I told Abby about recently. This is just for me in the last 6 months as I started doing this. I don't check my notifications at all. Post in all my groups in the morning. I don't check my notifications at nap time. Used to do that. That would suck like 30 minutes at Ellery's nap time. So instead, at night, right, Chris goes to bed a little bit before me because he's an early bird and he teaches school. So he's usually in bed before me, and then I start my little nighttime process, right, where I already went over that. Like take my supplements, I do all that stuff I was telling you about before. That, while I'm doing that, while I'm like taking my vitamins, picking out my video for the next day, kind of like farting around doing that stuff, that's when I go through my notifications. So that's probably why you guys wake up to a lot of my responses in the morning, because I'm responding to that stuff at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Thankfully, like 6 months ago, Facebook changed the algorithm so that we see, like they're doing a better job of showing you what you need to see at the top of your newsfeed. So when if I open my phone up by habit, usually, like if Ellery goes down for a nap and I pull my phone up just as a habit, if I pull up my Facebook, it's going to show me at the very top if somebody commented on my post from the morning. Or it's going to show me at the very top if the team's like, hey, this link isn't working or whatever that I posted this morning, right? So it's showing you your groups first and your own personal picture first at the top of your newsfeed. So there's no reason to click on your notifications. Does that make sense? Like, because it's showing you anything you might have to respond to. So I think that alone has probably saved me at least an hour a day for the last 6 months, because I was spending so much time just like tapping on the notifications. And it doesn't build your business. Get in, get out. Yeah. Anything else before we wrap it up? I have a crying toddler. I can hear her. She's been having night terrors. Anybody have night terrors with their kids? And I just heard my husband go up the stairs, and our pediatrician legit just told us to not go in there. So he's going in there. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, she's been like, yeah, she's screaming right now. I went in there 2 nights ago, and I was like, what's the matter, sweetie? Like, do you have your passy? Like, I was trying to figure it out. And it was like, she did not know I was there. She was like, it was freaky. Like, I even picked her up, and she was like thrashing at me. Like, so I told Chris, I'm like, never again. I hate to listen to her scream, but I'd rather listen to her scream than make her even more scared, you know?
And she doesn't see you in there at all. Like, she sees somebody else in there. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, you guys, well, I'm going to hang it up, and I will have the recording posted on the team page tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you feel like this would be helpful for your coaches, tag them in the recording. Have a great night.